Our story begins just outside of Naboo, as the royal starship is blasting away with Qui-Gon and Obi-Wan taking the Queen to Coruscant. As the Trade Federation ships fire at them, the pilot began to panic, so Obi-Wan quickly took to the controls, and Kenobi would use his instincts, guided by the Force, to avoid all of the ship's cannons, escaping the Federation blockade. And as the co-pilot read the damage reports from the ship, everything was all good. Hyperdrive and engines were still in great shape. The ship would not be making any pit stops to Tatooine, as they just jumped directly for Coruscant. Meanwhile, on Tatooine, the young Anakin Skywalker was spending another day slaving away for Watto. It was a nightmarish young life, living in the terribly hot sands with his mother under slavery. But Anakin knew he was destined for more. He had to be. Days would pass by and there were no Jedi, no excitement, no hopes of getting off this rock, except for one thing that Shmi was not letting Anakin participate in: the annual Boonta Eve Classic pod race. But as the event got closer, Anakin was just itching to be a part of it. He just needed a way in. So, on the morning of the race day, Anakin would sneak around to one of his racing mentors, Ben Quadraneros, and Anakin would tell Ben he is in rough shape, and after a while, he would convince Ben to nominate Anakin in his place, saying that he'll split the winnings with him. Ben knew that his pod was in terrible shape. He was never going to win. So, ultimately, he did decide to just nominate the boy in his place. And of course, Anakin Skywalker would indeed win the pod race, with his terrified mother in attendance cheering him on. And when it was over, Anakin and Ben would be rewarded with enough credits to buy their own freedom and safe passage out of here. But, as Anakin was celebrating and getting ready to be free of Watto, the Toydarian slave master went to Jabba the Hutt to complain, saying that his slave should not be able to be free like this, and the race was supposed to be rigged in favor of Sebulba. Jabba frustratedly told Watto it was rigged, the boy was just that good. Watto didn't care. He just told Jabba that this situation must be taken care of, or he is taking his business elsewhere. Meanwhile, across the galaxy, as Senator Palpatine was on Coruscant, preparing to take chancellorship for himself, Darth Plagueis informed Palpatine of this pod race, and how this boy was the first human to ever finish. The Sith were currently working on deals with the Hutts, so they were keeping track of events on Tatooine, and this would indeed spark great interest for Palpatine. So, Palpatine would send a hologram message to Jabba, asking for more details on the boy. Jabba said it was a lucky race, but now the boy and his mother are going to be killed to show the slaves here that there is never any escape. Darth Sidious smiled under his hood, then told Jabba to wait to attack the boy until he contacts him again. And back on Tatooine, many hours later, Shmi Skywalker used the credits to purchase transportation to Naboo, one of the closest planets to them. They were finally free. She looked at Skywalker with great pride as they exited the terminal and began walking towards the spaceport. But as they did, blaster fire suddenly rang out of a hidden area, and Shmi grabbed Anakin as they hid behind a couple of larger barrels. More fire zipped past them as Shmi came to a realization that what she feared was true. There was no escape from this life. Jabba and Watto were never going to just let them be free like this. Shmi would look down at Anakin, shaking in fear, and she told him to run on the count of 3. She counted 1, 2, but before she got to 3, a blue lightsaber ignited through the barrel, through Shmi's back, and her eyes went wide as she died looking at Anakin. Anakin scrambled away to see a robed man awkwardly holding this saber. The Jedi lifted this blade once more, only for him to now be thrown hard into the far wall. Anakin was covering his face, and then another hooded man, wielding a red lightsaber, jumped down and yelled at Anakin to follow him. Anakin wanted to stay with his mother, but Sidious told Anakin there is no time, and Anakin stumbled after this man all the way through a tunnel and into a starship that was waiting for them. Sidious guided Anakin inside, shut the door, and Sidious took off. Anakin was in complete shock, and Darth Sidious kindly told the boy that he will explain everything. Anakin truly had no words for a very long time, but eventually he asked Sidious if he was a Jedi. Sidious chuckled, then said he is no Jedi as he removed his hood, revealing the face of the man who was next up to be Chancellor. And when Anakin had no reaction, Palpatine realized how out of the news cycle Tatooine really is. This would work well for brainwashing the boy. Sidious could feel the Force around Anakin as soon as he got to Tatooine and put together his plan. Sidious hired a bounty hunter to pose as a Jedi, gifting this hunter a lightsaber of a Jedi that Maul had killed years ago. The hunter did his job well, killing Shmi, giving Anakin a lasting memory of a Jedi killing his mother. And now, Sidious would tell Anakin that he is the leader of the Republic, and he's working against the corrupted Jedi. Anakin didn't understand, so Sidious continued the lies, saying that the Jedi sit atop a beautiful temple above everyone else in the galaxy, and the only way they can afford such a building is by profiting off the Outer Rim. Anakin couldn't believe it. The Jedi were supposed to be good. But today, Anakin would learn that the Jedi use the Outer Rim slave trade for their own benefit. This, of course, was not true. But how would Anakin know that? Sidious looked to Anakin, telling him he has many gifts similar to the Jedi, but his path is by his side as Sith, if he chooses. Sidious promised Anakin all the freedom, power, revenge he could ever want, and Anakin's only other option was going back to Tatooine. So Anakin would accept this role, and over the next few days, Anakin would be kept hidden in Darth Plagueis' former suite after Plagueis was killed. Anakin would have no idea there was ever a fight here, as it was cleaned up perfectly. And while Anakin was hidden away in this suite, the galaxy changed, with Palpatine officially becoming Chancellor, and the Battle of Naboo taking place. But in this scenario, Qui-Gon Jinn would survive, as the Council would send Plo Koon and Anakin Skywalker in his place, as Qui-Gon had stepped away from the Naboo mission to investigate something peculiar that the Council was ignoring. Far away, on Tatooine, a human boy won the Boonta Eve pod race, the first ever human to race, finish, and win. And shortly after, his mother was reported dead from a lightsaber stab, while the boy has gone missing. The Council didn't care about this, but Qui-Gon could feel that something was going on here, something dark, and he was determined to find out exactly what. So on Naboo, Anakin Skywalker would lead the space attack, destroying the Federation lead ship, while Plo Koon and Obi-Wan would kill Darth Maul for certain. Naboo would be freed, and as the galaxy settled back into peace with Chancellor Palpatine, he would don the robes of Sidious at night, bringing Anakin to the planet of Moraband, where he would be trained to become a Sith. This was the place where Darth Bane himself trained so long ago, but almost immediately upon the training beginning, a troubling reality would set in. Anakin struggled. The cold tombs of long-dead Sith Lords didn't offer any comfort, and Anakin lived in constant fear and emotional agony that he didn't know how to actually use to his advantage. He did as he was told, practicing with a wooden saber, meditating in the presence of the great Sith tombs, but there was no fire in him. He was just going through the motions, unable to channel the fury and ambition Sidious had expected. Weeks passed, then months, and Anakin was stagnant. He was a boy with infinite potential, but he was unwilling or just unable to grasp it. Sidious knew he'd made a mistake. Anakin had been raised in slavery, and while it had bred anger in him, it also instilled a form of helplessness sometimes. He was alone, severed from his mother for the first time, severed from everyone for the first time. He had no sense of belonging. The Sith of old had sometimes thrived on power through brotherhood and conflict with each other. And perhaps Anakin needed just that. So, Sidious reached out to Count Dooku, setting him on a new mission. The Jedi were becoming more selective with their recruits, discarding of those deemed unworthy. These Jedi were sent to the Agricultural Corps, destined for lives of service, their connection to the Force completely being wasted. Dooku was assigned to find them, and those who the Jedi had given up on would be brought to Moraband. If Anakin could not rise in his power alone, he would be forged in fire with others. And every night, as Sidious left Coruscant to come train Anakin, he felt his own connection to the boy begin to grow. Anakin was so glad to see him every day, as he had no other connections quite yet, and this also woke something in Sidious. He absolutely hated his own father, and Sidious soon found himself trying to be like a better father to Anakin, being the man he always would have wanted. And so over the next year, the Sith Temple would truly awake from its ancient sleep. The first arrivals were broken, bitter, former Jedi hopefuls who'd known rejection and resentment for the Order. One by one, they were brought before Sidious, who promised them strength, vengeance, and purpose. There was one called Varric, a Miralaran who'd shown too much cruelty during his trials and had been cast aside. There was Lena, a Zabrak whose rage burned too brightly for the Jedi. But the most promising was Sevra, a Twi'lek who'd been sent to the Agricorps, and she was a girl who'd nearly killed her master during Jedi training and had to be sent away. These, along with a handful of others, filled the ancient temple, and the darkness would grow stronger with each passing day. This was exactly what Anakin needed to help unlock his potential. Anakin would train and change with them. He still longed for his mother, but he was no longer alone. The others here pushed him, challenged him, made him fight and grow, and with every duel, every lesson in Sith history, every trial of endurance within the tombs, Anakin grew stronger. Sidious was finally seeing results in the boy, and Anakin was the only one here he truly cared about or saw a future with. This small group of Sith acolytes on Moraband grew together over time, and as the wider galaxy continued to be corrupted by Sidious and Dooku, the years of training on Moraband continued to be unrelenting. The Sith didn't believe in rest or comfort, and every day would be a battle, a test, a lesson in pain and in power, and Anakin, now a teenager, would grow stronger with each passing month, his once uncertain mind now sharpening into something truly lethal. He'd found purpose, not only in the teachings of the Sith, but also in the presence of those he fought beside. Anakin dreamt of a day when he and these acolytes helped take the Sith back from the galaxy. And in training, these acolytes were rivals, allies, and threats to each other. None more dangerous than Sevra, the tree-like woman who Anakin had grown quite fond of. She'd been watching, learning, and waiting. Sevra saw what the others refused to acknowledge. Sidious had his eyes on only Anakin. They were all training to be Sith, yet none of them would ever rise to true power. She knew it. So, Sevra played her part well, drawing closer to Anakin, becoming his most trusted partner in battle, the one who pushed him harder than anyone else, and also told Anakin how proud she was when he succeeded. It started as a ploy, a careful move on the board for the Sith. If Anakin wants to be the next apprentice, she would make sure she was at his side. But the dark side was insidious, twisting everything it touched, and somewhere in the long nights of training, in the blood and fire of their endless duels, the lines between power and desire were blurred. Sevra had meant to manipulate Anakin. Instead, she found herself bound to him in ways she hadn't truly expected. Sidious would train them often. He never actually slept. He had mastered sleep completely, and when Coruscant fell into night, he would be on Moraband, as the flight over was less than an hour. He was carving them into weapons beneath the cold, red glow of Moraband's eternal dusk. The trials were brutal. Lightning would be searing into flesh. The Force would be felt in their bones. Battles in the tombs of ancient Sith Lords, where the spirits whispered promises of power would take place. Anakin and Sevra thrived. They were the best, the strongest, the closest to what a true Sith should be. But the competition was strong. Varric became Anakin's fiercest enemy, and their training duels were no longer just about skill, but about hatred, about proving dominance, about breaking the other. And this rivalry consumed Anakin. Sidious loved it. But it was Sevra who anchored Anakin down. In moments of silence between battles, away from Sidious's watchful gaze, the two of them found solace in each other. At first, it was just another sort of power, control over something, in a world that stripped them of everything. But as the years passed, it was more than that. In the darkness of the Sith Temple, they carved out something that the dark side was never meant to nurture. It was love, or at least what they remembered to be love. It was a love born of war, survival, shared ambition, and struggle together. The Sith taught their students to embrace emotions, and so they did. And by the time they were 18, there was no denying it. Anakin was still Sidious's chosen one, but Sevra had bound herself to him in ways deeper than even she intended. They'd become the finest warriors of these Sith, power eclipsing the others, their bond making them stronger together than they'd ever been apart. Sidious had originally wanted a single apprentice, but as time passed, he saw that together, Anakin and Sevra could be the future of the Sith, while he controls the galaxy. So, eventually, Sidious set up a true test of Anakin's power, a duel against his rival, Varric, with added stakes. Varric stood with confidence in the training room. He had a twisted grin on his face, the weight of his threat hanging in the air. Last night, he had taken Sevra. He'd tormented her, promised to kill her once he beat Anakin, and Anakin could feel her presence somewhere nearby, faint but alive. His hands were wrapped around his saber. Breathing was sharp and uneven. He knew what Sidious wanted. He knew Sidious planned this. He wanted to see Anakin unlock his true power. But as the duel began, Anakin's anger clouded his mind more than it was supposed to. His attacks were reckless. Varric was precise, blade cutting through Anakin's defenses, driving him back, feeding off his instability. But soon, something inside of Anakin would snap. The frustration, fear, fury surged like never before, and his movements would sharpen, strikes coming in harder, faster as the dark side poured into him, strength no longer held back by restraint or doubt, and soon Varric would falter. Anakin was a force of pure destruction, overwhelming his opponent with a barrage of attacks, and one savage strike sent Varric's saber spinning from his hand. Anakin would seize this moment, unleashing a powerful force push that sent Varric hurling into the stone walls, impact cracking his bones. Anakin didn't stop. He advanced, fingers outstretched, the force tightening around Varric's throat. Before long, his body was convulsing, but Anakin did not care. He didn't think. He only felt the raw power of control and vengeance, and the life drained from Varric's eyes as his body went limp. Anakin released him, letting him crumple to the floor, lifeless. The chamber was silent, except for the sound of Anakin's heavy breathing, body still pulsing with the power of the dark side. But his mind had only one focus now, Sevra. He turned, following her presence, tearing through the temple until finally he found her, bound but alive. And with a flick of his hand, her restraints fell away. This wasn't just about power anymore, it was about the two of them. Anakin had embraced the darkness completely, and now, with Sevra at his side, nothing would ever take her from him again. Sidious watched all of this with glee and excitement, as soon his next masterful manipulations would begin as the Clone Wars finally got underway. The Acolytes would replace the need for Grievous or Ventress, as they would aid the Separatists in battle. Anakin and Sevra, among the strongest of them, were sent on mission after mission of assassinations, sabotage, hunting down Jedi, each battle hardening them, pushing them deeper into the darkness, and with each victory, Sidious's grand plan unfolded. Republic and Separatists clashed on countless worlds, but behind all of it, the Sith were thriving. And yet, amid all the bloodshed, a secret war would soon wage within Anakin himself. Jedi Master Qui-Gon Jinn had found his way to Moraband, slipping through the shadows of the ancient world, learning what no Jedi had before. Over many years, obsessed with the return of the Sith, Qui-Gon had pieced it all together. Anakin's abduction, Shmi's death, the bounty hunter who killed her, the Sith resurgence, the missing Jedi of the Agricultural Corps who'd become something new. Qui-Gon eventually found himself here, spying on the Sith trainees. He'd become obsessed with this, and when the moment came, Qui-Gon would confront the boy who was meant to be the chosen one. Qui-Gon was convinced of it. He could sense the light in Anakin, along with the power, and Anakin would venture away from the Sith temple when Qui-Gon confronted him. Anakin had tried to strike him down initially, but the Jedi Master's words stilled his blade. Qui-Gon said he knew the truth about Anakin's mother, and he told Anakin he knows of his real destiny as the Chosen One. These words dug into Anakin's mind like a wound that would not heal, and so instead of killing Qui-Gon, Anakin would imprison him in a cave hidden within the canyons of Moraband. He did not know why. He told himself it was to question him, to understand his motives, but the truth was something deeper, something unspoken. In overtime, between battles and missions of the Clone Wars, Anakin would return to this cave. He never spoke of it to Sidious or to Sevra. Qui-Gon should have been his enemy, and yet the Jedi Master's presence brought something Anakin had long forgotten, a quiet voice of reason, of understanding. Qui-Gon didn't fight or resist, he simply spoke. He planted ideas in Anakin's mind, not with demands or accusations, but with patience. He told him of the Jedi, of the prophecy, of balance. He spoke of a path Anakin had never been allowed to consider. The Sith had given him power, but what had they taken in return? At first, Anakin dismissed the words, but over the months, over the years of war, the doubts began to fester like a crack in his soul. And in the galaxy, war continued, as the Acolytes would begin to fall one by one. The Jedi were powerful, they numbered in the thousands, and even the best of the Sith were not invincible. But Anakin and Sevra only grew stronger, more ruthless, forged by the dark side. And yet the more Anakin embraced his role, the more Qui-Gon's words haunted him. Every battle felt emptier. Every victory was hollow. Sevra noticed these changes, but he never spoke of why his emotions were shifting. He couldn't. He wanted to believe that the Sith were the only way. He wanted to believe that Sidious had saved him. But there was something else now, something that he couldn't ignore. The quiet presence of this man, who still saw light in him, and it reminded Anakin of his mother. He became careless in his divided mind. He'd spent so long coming to Qui-Gon in secret, speaking to him between war and bloodshed, that he'd become far too comfortable. He didn't see Qui-Gon as a prisoner. Not anymore. Anakin convinced himself that Qui-Gon wanted to be here, and so, when he once left the cave one evening, exhausted from battle, he didn't realize what he'd left behind. A communicator, tossed aside, within Qui-Gon's reach. and for the first time in many months, the Jedi Master had a connection beyond this cave. He'd barely eaten, he'd spent almost every moment meditating, and he thought Anakin may be ready to finally turn back. But still, Qui-Gon did hesitate. He'd come this far, placing all his faith in Anakin, believing that the boy could still find his way to the light. But the war was reaching its peak, the Sith were continuing to rise, and now he had a choice. He could wait, hoping Anakin would see the truth on his own, or he could act. So Qui-Gon reached for the communicator, heart heavy, knowing that what came next could change everything. He activated a signal for Coruscant, sending out his voice, and the Jedi Temple would hear his call. And soon, Anakin Skywalker, the Sith's best weapon, would be forced to make a choice. Hours later on Moraband, Darth Sidious, Anakin, and Sevra stood upon the Sith Temple steps, darkside flowing around them. Sidious had sensed a shift in the Force. He'd summoned Dooku and his separatist fleet to stand guard over the ancient Sith world. But as the massive warships emerged from hyperspace, so too did a Republic fleet. A colossal space battle would suddenly erupt above the Sith planet without warning, with Count Dooku commanding his fleet against the Republic fleet led by Jedi Master Mace Windu. Turbo laser fire lit up the battle, starfighter squadrons twisting through the chaos in deadly fights. Capital ships were shattered, the vacuum was swallowing thousands of lives in an instant. But down on the planet of Moraband, the true battle was about to begin. Within the hidden cave, Anakin stood over Qui-Gon, anger and confusion warring within him. The Jedi Master offered Anakin a final chance, a path that his mother would have wanted, a path of light. Anakin hesitated. He'd never known peace, never known anything but the darkness, and the love that he'd found within it. And soon, a rescue team of Jedi landed to save Qui-Gon as they tracked his location. It was Saesee Tiin, Kelleran Beq, and Jaro Tapal. And Qui-Gon told Anakin to join them, help the Jedi truly free the galaxy. Anakin thought about it for a long time, but then Sevra entered, her red blade igniting in the dim light. And in this moment, Anakin decided to choose the person he loved instead of the Jedi. The battle would be instant and brutal. Saesee Tiin, Kelleran Beq, and Jaro Tapal fought to save Qui-Gon, sabers clashing against Anakin and Sevra would strike down Tiin with a ruthless downward cleave. Anakin would impale Beq through the chest before twisting his saber free. Jaro Tapal continued to fight, but a cruel maneuver from Sevra left him staggering as Anakin seized the moment, slashing across his torso, ending the fight. And with the Jedi squad dead, Anakin turned back to Qui-Gon, the weight of his decision pressing upon him. But he'd made his choice. He lifted his hand, and with the power of the dark side, he choked the life from the man who'd once believed in him. Qui-Gon's body fell still, and the cave was silent as the Jedi Master died, trusting the ancient prophecy. And then, Anakin and Sevra left to find a great battle going on all around them. Republic gunships and separatist transports filled the skies of Moraband, as Jedi, Sith, clones, and droids clashed in the greatest battle of the Clone Wars. Countless laser bolts streaked through the air as lightsabers cut through the chaos. The last of the Sith acolytes now fought alongside the Sith Lords Sidious, Anakin, and Sevra, and they were all tearing into the Jedi forces with ferocious power as Anakin made his choice, staying in the darkness. Moraband would turn to ash and blood beneath the weight of this war. Sidious moved through the battlefield like a shadow, Red Blade carving through Jedi with ease. Plo Koon and Kit Fisto fought against him, their combined mastery of the Force causing the Dark Lord to unleash his full power. Lightning blasted from his fingers, hurling Fisto into a burning wreckage underneath a crashing ship. Plo Koon held on longer, speed keeping him alive, until Sidious stabbed him with a precise thrust through the chest. Anakin and Sevra fought as one, tearing through Jedi and clones alike, blades flashing together. Kenobi and Balaba faced them down, their mastery of defense pushed to its limits as the two Sith fought with a fury beyond anything they'd ever faced. The duels raged through the ruins of the Sith Temple, blades sparking against stone. Anakin finally struck down Obi-Wan as Sevra severed the head of Shaak Ti. Across the battlefield, the Jedi's greatest warriors made their final stand. Yoda battled through legions of battle droids, Greenblade moving with perfect speed until he reached Sidious, and the two Masters of the Force clashed together as Anakin and Sevra soon joined Sidious. A final strike from the three Sith sent the Grandmaster to his knees, and with one last searing blast of lightning, Sidious ended the greatest of the Jedi as the Republic forces collapsed around them. In space, the battle raged to its climax, Dooku and Windu commanding their fleets, and eventually, the two of them clashing aboard Dooku's command ship. Sidious took advantage of this, ordering the Separatists to target this ship. Together, Dooku and Windu would die at Sidious' betrayal, bodies consumed by the explosions that shattered the ship. Both Republic and Separatist fleets fought on as the end was near. And on the surface, the last of the Jedi would fall. Luminara Unduli, Coleman Cash, so many others were cut down until the battlefield was silent. The Republic, the Separatists, the Jedi all lay broken and dead as the three Sith stood strong. Sidious, Anakin, and Sevra standing amid the ruins of the Great Battle. And with this attack ending, with Dooku dead and the Jedi severely weakened, Sidious decided it was finally time. Across the galaxy, the final command echoed: execute Order 66. The Jedi were branded as traitors, attempting to overthrow the rightful rulers of the galaxy. Clone troopers turned their weapons on them without hesitation. Those who had survived the war were cut down in an instant, ambushed in the temple, executed on distant battlefields. The Jedi Order was wiped from existence in a single moment. Temples were burned, teachings outlawed, their name cursed. The age of the Sith had begun again. Emperor Palpatine reshaped the shattered Republic into his new galactic empire. The people that were tired of endless war accepted this rule without question. With his empire secured, Sidious turned to his enforcers, Anakin and Sevra. Unlike the Sith of old, they had no interest in taking his throne. They had no need for betrayal, no lust for politics or scheming. They were warriors, Sith in the purest form, existing only to revel in the power they'd earned. They hunted the last remnants of the Jedi, crushed rebellion wherever it dared to rise, and they were not rulers, but the galaxy was theirs in all the ways that they needed. The years passed by. Anakin and Sevra thrived in their dark freedom, carving their own path, taking what they wanted, going where they pleased, indulging in the chaos they'd helped create. They fought together, lived together, embraced the darkness together. Their love, once born of ambition and necessity and fake, had become so real, so powerful. They had no need to betray each other, no desire to take more than what they had. For them, this was enough. And as the Empire tightened its grip on the galaxy, Anakin and Sevra only stood side by side, undefeated, unchallenged. They'd chosen this path long ago, and they walked it without regret. The Jedi were gone. The Republic was replaced. The Sith had won. And in the shadows of the Empire, where fear and power ruled, the two Sith would work with Palpatine to crush everyone who dared to oppose them for decades to come. And folks, that is our story for today. Looks like it's a longer one than usual. One I enjoyed quite a bit, so I hope you did as well. Let me know what you thought down below. It's, kind of just going out, creating some characters, creating some fun scenarios with Sevra and, the other Sith acolytes here. So yeah, I wanted to kind of mirror Darth Bane's training as I'm finally getting around to reading the Bane trilogy. But yeah, let me know what you thought. And also go check out the couple of shorts that I made in the last couple days. Got to clean up some editing there, but overall I'm having fun with those. Gonna keep making them and hope you guys like that extra content. So thanks, and I'll see you in the next video.